Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Named the dog Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in paints.
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is the man who says the magic word, Frank. How are you today?
I am doing freaking fantastic. I saw a great movie. I'm drinking a great beer. I'm feeling pretty good. How about you?
That sounds great, Frank. I'm also doing great. And you know why? Because I also saw a great movie, and I'm drinking beer. Spoiler, we liked what we were talking about. It's the beer. Frank, what kind of what's your beer? What fancy beer do you have?
My beer situation is German in nature.
Deutsch German. Oh,
Yeah.
That's German.
Deutschen beer. I am drinking a Weihenstephaner Hefeweissbier. And it is...
Tell me about it.
It is... Well,
say it 5 times fast, then tell me about it.
I would rather just tell you about it rather than offend an entire people. 5 times, no less. It's refreshing. It's a Hefeweizen, so it's on the lighter side. It's got sort of, a lot of like wheat beers or Hefeweizens will have a citrusy flavor, but this one has a little bit of a banana taste to it, which I like.
Banana, sure. Mm-hmm.
So it's like banana and spices, but it's very refreshing, and I highly recommend it if you can get your hands on it.
You're spicy, so you are. Frank, I am not drinking a German beer. I am drinking what is called an Elysian Space Dust IPA. Now, Frank, here's the thing about this Elysian Space Dust IPA. It was recently drunk, but one, it's good, FYI.
So was I, by the way.
You were recently drunk, weren't you, Frank? Weren't you? Just because you're a sad, alone old man.
Just got drunk alone just because. No, that would be
so.
sad.
No. A couple stories about this beer, Frank. And one, it was gifted to us by Metropolis podcast, MetPod, co-host Lauren of Thought Bubble Audio, because she knew it was my bachelor party, and she called the bar we were at to give us beer.
Yes.
And this is what she selected, and it was marvelous. I was so stunned and shocked and awed and how lovely and awesome she is. And I need everyone on the podcast who listens to appreciate that. So thank you, Lauren, for that. So I have that because it's delicious and needed some more. Second, weirdly, this beer has been in my life recently because, Frank, as you well know, because we're friends and stuff, of launching this new podcast, Frank.
That you are.
It's called Read Up.
That it is.
It's called the Read Up Podcast, into which it's a podcast about books where we talk about books intellectually and stuff. And it's a solo podcast, but I occasionally have guests, when books cross our paths, because books are not something that we really have in common. And I read a lot of books. I read over 100 books last year. And so, by God, it's just a wasted opportunity not to throw my thoughts out there onto the internet, as so many people do, because Lord knows we love to hear ourselves talk. But if you want to hear me and somebody else talk about Dune, the great sci-fi novel Dune by Frank Herbert, you can head over to Read Up Podcast, and I have Scott from the Suicide Squad cast on there with me, and he likes to theme his beer. And he did an Elysium Space Dust, which was fantastic. So all good all good things for Scott, which was just so good of him to come on and help me out with that. So that's what I'm drinking, and that was the story about Lauren, and it was my bachelor party. Yes, I'm getting married. Sorry, guys.
He is off the market,
which everyone already knew. So what does it matter? Here, Frank, we're here to talk about Shazam. Though Shazam, go web, go.
That was my favorite part of the movie. Yeah, go web, go. Shazam, fly web, up and away web. That was just it was so great. It was such a great movie. I loved the science award part. I loved all of that. It was great. It was a really, really good movie. Solid movie.
Frank.
Yeah.
I know that sometimes you think you're funny, and today you're still funny. Congratulations. Yay! That was a hilarious joke.
I'm hilarious.
We're here to talk about DC's latest entry into their DC Comics movie slate with Shazam. Now, Frank, before we start talking about the movie, we've had Man of Steel, we've had Batman v Superman, we've had Suicide Squad, we've had Justice League, we've had Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and now Shazam.
Mm-hmm.
Shazam is the third film in the revitalized DCEU slate of films, because Wonder Woman was filmed after Justice League. Justice League was retroactively edited to kind of fit the new tone, shot and to fit the new tone that they were going for. So if we're looking at the new direction of the DCEU, we've got Wonder Woman, we've got Aquaman, and now we have Shazam. How does Shazam stack for you in the new direction of DCEU films? Are we falling back towards Batman v Superman for you, or Suicide Squad, or are we moving our way forward into the stratosphere of good comic book films, by your opinion, in your opinion only? Frank, say some words.
This was the most fun I've had watching a DCEU movie yet. The most fun.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. I'm so glad to hear that, Frank. I also had a super big blast with this movie, as many people did. Because, it's really got it's that very popular 80s style in the 21st century. So it's fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's unapologetic. And it also has this really dark underbelly to it. As many 80s films do. If you think back at some of your favorite films from the 80s, like, they're fun. Like Back to the Future is a great example of this. Back to the Future is wickedly fun, but then there's also that scene where Biff almost rapes Marty's mom.
Yeah. I was actually just listening to a podcast talking about Back to the Future earlier today, and yes, it's very true. That's very true.
Like,
even the
supremely dark.
Oh, absolutely. Even the fact that Biff is, like, buffing the car, washing the car at the end of the movie, right? The fact that George McFly is like, yeah, you almost raped my wife back in high school, but it's fine. You can here, just wash the car. Like, what? Like, that's a little unnerving. So yes, it's very that aspect is very dark for sure. And this movie definitely, it has the 7 deadly sins. By the way, there will be spoilers out the wazoo for Shazam. So if you haven't seen it yet, by all means, get yourself to a theater and see it before you listen to us two clowns prattle on about it. But yeah, it literally has demons and like literal pure evil. As the villains, really.
Right. Well, that boardroom scene where where Savannah just knocks people out the window,
just kills Lionel Luthor like that,
he kills crippled Lionel Luthor.
Yeah,
Frank, crippled John Glover. This is his fourth entry into the DC Comics stratosphere. He was Lionel Luthor on Smallville. John Glover was Lionel Luthor on Smallville.
Mm-hmm.
He was the voice of the Riddler on Batman the Animated
that's
Series.
the one I wasn't thinking of. I was like, what's the fourth one?
He was Dr. Jason Woodrue in Batman and Robin.
Yep.
And now he is Mr. Savannah, Dr. Savannah, Mr. Savannah of Savannah Industries or in Enterprises, whatever, in Shazam.
Mm-hmm.
Shazam. So good for him. He's just killing it. Well, he's dead now, but he's killing it. Not John Glover, but Mr. Savannah. Because he's an awful, awful human.
Yes.
But I was going to say, that scene is dark. He just goes in there and kills all those people, and then he's like, all right, let's do this. And then Savannah, like, unapologetically is going after children, and he's like, I'm just going to kill these kids. And you don't think about it when you're a kid because, like, Captain Hook is always trying to kill Peter Pan, blah, blah, blah. It's, that's what happens. But if you take a step back, this is a fully grown adult who is just like, children, I shall murder you.
That's true.
Pretty dark, Frank. That's it. if you remove yourself from it, that might be in some ways darker than anything we've seen in the DCEU films so far. Because at least it's then adults going after adults.
Yeah,
but this is really an adult going after children.
Let's talk about some other stuff in the movie first before we get there, because I feel like we're going to get into point counterpoint there. But let's talk. Why don't we talk about the movie in general a bit more, or talk about good bits that we liked and stuff? Because
sure.
I feel like this could sort of become its own sort of rat hole of a conversation that will probably dominate if we don't put ourselves in check.
Of course.
What are some things? So, what did you think of Mark Strong as a villain?
I thought, that's what we were talking about before. So, great way to segue.
No, but Mark Strong's performance.
His performance was excellent because Mark Strong gives a great performance no matter what he's doing.
Yeah,
and I thought there was a good backstory. He wasn't just evil for the sake of being evil, except that he kind of was, except that, like he was rejected as a child. He was rejected by his father and his brother. And then he meets this magical being who's like, I can make you superior and great and awesome. Oh, wait, no, you're not good enough. So the wizard tells him exactly what his father tells him. So, of course, this poor kid just like snaps. And he just never fully recovers. And I really enjoyed that about the character, where it doesn't really beat you over the head with it. You could easily walk away and be like, what a bland villain. Or you could actually take a second and look at it and say, no, he had some real motivation. He had some real motivation there. And I like that. Most of the DCEU villains have good motivation. Most of the time, they're a little stronger than other generic action movie villains. Like, I'm evil for being evil. Bloop bloop bloop
right.
bloop bloop.
Right.
There's some heft to their actions, and Savannah kind of falls in the middle of that. I would say he's not. He could go a little stereotypical, or he could be very textured. He's kind of in the middle.
But
I think the performance is great.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think the performance was fantastic. I thought that his characterization was really, really great. The way the character was written was a little.
It's Jeff Johns' Dr. Savannah.
Yes,
it's not. It's new modern New 52 Dr. Savannah, not original Dr. Savannah.
Right, not classic Savannah. But I was fine with that. I was okay with that.
His eye effect was super cool,
really
and
cool.
I'm glad I didn't see it until the movie, because it really hit itself in all the trailers because I knew it was coming, but it's still kind of like, whoa, yeah, that looks cool. It's almost it's mesmerizing.
Yeah.
Almost. I really enjoyed that.
I loved that. I actually thought that the Seven Deadly Sins themselves looked really, really cool in the way that they were presented, because it was like the statues, I'm pretty sure, were practical.
Yes, they
with
were.
Some maybe just a little bit of CG, enhancement. But then obviously when they were freed, they were fully CG, and they were pretty cool. They were pretty cool too, and they were pretty interesting. They were interesting in that they were, in charge of him, but also sort of being like, fly my pretties. I found them as a cool villain.
It was an interesting symbiotic relationship that they had with them.
That's right.
Yeah, I loved that when Savannah's a kid in the Rock of Eternity and their eyes glow, it's really just light bulbs in the statues.
I mean, it looks like something you'd see at Disney World, or something, like in the Haunted Mansion or something.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I liked that a lot. There wasn't any special trick about it. I will disagree with you that I do not like the look of the sins, or in some ways their characterization, because they're very generic monsters to me. Like, the only one that you could really pinpoint like greed because it had 4 arms, and gluttony because he was fat.
Yes.
After that, I don't know, like, which one's envy, which one's sloth, I have no idea.
I actually will agree with you there. That the looks of them were not necessarily, they weren't directly tied to who they were. It wasn't easy to identify them.
Right.
I do agree with you there.
And they're all being gray, like they're gray as statues, obviously, because they're statues. But then when they're quote unquote alive, when they're out and free, they still kind of look like statues. So I found them pretty boring and unthreatening.
Interesting. Okay. What were your feelings on the way that Shazam himself, that Billy Batson himself was handled?
I thought Angel Aston, whatever his name,
Yeah, I think it's Angel Ashton.
Yeah, he was spectacular. He has this kind of pain behind his eyes that he was able to he was able to bring out. So Billy himself is very subdued, and then when he becomes Shazam, he's very exuberant. But that's almost like, if that's Billy at his best, or or at his most free, Billy doesn't feel like he can be himself or free, because he's been beat down by the system, and he's got to find his mom, and and all this different stuff. So when he becomes Shazam, he can almost be himself, but he's not himself because he's Shazam.
Right.
So there's this really nice parallel between Billy not being himself in his own skin, and then being too much of a good thing as Shazam, and then kind of merging those pieces together as the film goes on. So by the time the film ends, he kind of is himself, whether he's Shazam or Billy Batson. And I really like that. And again, the movie really doesn't call attention to that. It just lets you watch the movie and kind of watch Billy's transformation. But when he has that his literal leap of faith off the building to become Shazam in midair, he is fully accepting who he is as Billy Batson, but then also as Shazam. It's pretty great.
It is pretty great. And I fully agree with that. It really, I felt like this movie, in particular, in the way that it treated Billy, but really sort of in the formula of the story itself. I really feel like this movie, it felt like a 90s DC movie, like a like one of the Batman films or something. It felt like something from that era, blended in the formula of the storytelling.
Okay, all right,
and blended with like a Sony Spider-Man film. Let's say like a Raimi Spider-Man. It had a lot of the same beats of like how the hero. I mean, because it is an origin story, right? We're doing that thing again,
right?
Which I didn't mind. And very much I felt that it had a lot of the fun factor and the sort of story beat formula of one of those movies, and I really enjoyed it. It felt like a Warner Brothers movie. Like, take superheroes out of it, and just pretend they're normal people. And it felt like a Warner Brothers classic studio film. In a way that I really enjoyed. And I felt like for the first time in a couple years, Warner Brothers was doing what they know how to do, instead of sort of like, we understand the kids like superheroes, so let's try this. I don't know what I'm doing, which is how a lot of the DCU has felt to me. This felt like, these are the kinds of movies we know how to make. Let's make the best damn one of these we know we can in 2019, and I think that they did.
No, that's a very interesting. That's an interesting angle. I will take it a step back and say, it said it felt like a Spider-Man movie or a '90s Batman movie, which I do not think is a compliment. Whether you're talking about, because you're talking Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. It's not
fair.
Not good looks,
fine.
Frank. There's not a lot of DC
honestly,
movies happening in the '90s.
I would compare it more to Batman '89 than I would to those other two. So let's call it an '80s movie.
In some ways, there's really two. There's two formulas for superhero films. It's either Superman 78 or it's Batman 89. And those are, and you're either talking the origin of the superhero from the beginning until they complete their, hero's journey arc by the end of the film, or you have that's the Superman, or you have the Batman 89 where it's the origin of the hero, but it's a little in media res. They already are the hero, and they're just being more of a hero, and then you learn some backstory as the film goes on, but that's really not the focus. And those are really your two types of superhero films, and you could pretty much plug that formula into any superhero movie. except if you're talking like like first superhero
Oh,
movies. Like
yes.
you
Yes,
can't
of course.
plug that into
But
like Infinity War or something like that. But
here's what I kind of felt like what we had was because I feel like Mark Strong was in like a Batman formula movie, and I feel like Billy was in closer to a Superman 78 formula of a movie. And
I see. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I kind of end up feeling like they took some of the best elements from both formulas and created this out of it.
Yeah, I can see that.
You're free to disagree, by the way. You don't have to try and justify my opinion. You can tell me yours instead.
Yeah, I think I disagree a little bit, not tons, but there is like that. You know, I don't want to box the film in because once you start boxing the film in, you almost like diminish the film, and it because we're struggling to kind of box it into something else. That means it really stands on its own.
Fair,
because it doesn't exactly fit the type somewhere else. But as far as origin stories go for Shazam as a main character, it's a Superman 78 story. He gets his powers, he does his thing, blah blah blah. If you look at if you look at the opening scene with Savannah as a kid and everything like that, you're looking at like opening Krypton sequence where you learn a bunch of stuff.
Totally. Yes. That's how I've read that too. Yes.
Yep. And then you go into Billy's little origin, and then he learns about himself, and then he tries to find his way, and then something bad happens. And this is the Spider-Man formula. You said Spider-Man Raimi, and the Raimi Spider-Man movie is structured on the Superman 78 structure.
That's right.
And so like, oh, this person's hurt and now I've got to save them, oh, he's captured Freddy. Oh my God, Aunt May's in the hospital. It's all the same. Yes. It's in the same. It's a 5-act structure, and it's just bam, 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 and it follows that lead. But you're right. You're exactly right, and this is the film that Warner Brothers knows how to make, which is hilarious because it's a New Line film put out by Warner Brothers.
That's right. That is right.
Yeah.
You're right. I did not even realize that, I wasn't thinking about that, but I do remember now. Yes, it did say New Line Cinema Presents, of course.
Right, because some of the Warner Brothers wanted to focus on other franchises, so they kind of moved the DC films into New Line to be like, New Line, make some films over here for DC, and we'll make some, and that way we can pump out a little bit more than we were currently doing. So this is the first of the New Line DC films, I think. But anyway, going back to that, what did you think of the other kids in the house? Like Darla and Freddie and all the kids. What did you think?
Charming as hell.
I agree. I turned to the people I saw it with, and I was like, okay, I think they're my favorite. No, they're my favorite. No, it's them. They're my favorite. And it just kind of they felt very authentic, even though like you kind of know they're acting whatever else, but they feel authentic to the film that they're in. They fit the tone, which is great. And the foster parents were spectacular.
Yes, they were awesome. Mm-hmm. They were so cool, and they could have been like total background, like not important characters, not fleshed out in any way, shape, or form. And it was I loved the way that the role that they played in this story, in forming this family unit.
Mm-hmm. I also agree. What did you think? Well, let's talk about some of the references that the film makes to other larger things, because this movie unapologetically takes place in the DC universe. Like, it's like, I have a bullet that shot Superman, and I have a Batarang replica, and the end credit scene with with Aquaman and the fish. Oh, you don't have fish powers, or they're like, what good is any of that? I don't know. Controlling an army of millions, like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
That was funny. That was really funny.
Did you like all of that stuff leading up to, of course, Superman himself, Superman's torso showing up in the last shot of the film?
I did enjoy that stuff because it really was a good, world building exercise. I enjoyed that. Those were fun little references. I mean, even just the fact that, like, they're running through the toy store and like there's Justice League action figures swinging from the pegs, and Freddy's always wearing a different superhero T-shirt, and I love all that stuff. I enjoyed that. It felt like I this is what I wish all these movies had felt like up until now.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And I almost wish, like, what if they used this as a launching pad for, like, their phase 2? And what if this is almost like their Iron Man for their phase 2? Like, this is where their universe really starts to take off and goes more in this direction. Because I would be really happy with a series of films that felt more like this.
Well, you don't think that Aquaman and Wonder Woman do feel like this? I mean, it's not, say, an 80s kids movie tone necessarily, but to me, they share pretty similar DNA.
I disagree. I loved Wonder Woman. I liked Aquaman, but I loved Wonder Woman. And I think Wonder Woman is a better film, better made movie than this. This was more fun.
Interesting opinion.
This
I think
was
the
more
third
fun.
act of Shazam is better than the third act. Of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I might agree with you there. Yes. That might be true. But on the whole, I think that Wonder Woman is a better film and Shazam is a more fun movie.
Yes.
And that's not a diss on Shazam. That's not like, oh, this one's just fun popcorn movie. Like, no, it was also a very good movie, but felt more fun to me than Wonder Woman's not fun. It's heavy, right?
Mm-hmm.
That aside, I feel like the tone in Wonder Woman and even in Aquaman is not as lighthearted as this. Aquaman is closer to this, but Aquaman and Wonder Woman both have sort of, and I hate to use this word, but sort of baggage or sort of, they're still very closely connected to the Snyderverse, right? And to Snyder's actual films in terms of BVS and half of Justice League.
Right.
Whereas this one felt like something else experimental that happens to be taking place in the same universe.
I think that's absolutely correct, because this is the first film, apart from the appearance of Superman's torso, that actually is connected to the DCEU, but not in a way that he has appeared in other films.
Mm-hmm. None of the main characters. I mean, take Superman out of it. None of the characters in this movie have appeared in any of those other films.
That's right. I would discourage the idea of wanting every film to feel like this one, because not every character fits the tone of every. Not every film, or not every character fits the tone of every film, and so that's what got them in the trouble in the first place. Is they tried to use a dark, brooding, maybe almost, I guess, even just depressing, thoughtful tone for characters that don't really belong in that style.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine trying to watch a Shazam movie like that? Like,
I would have walked out, man. I would have been like, this is it. I'm done. Like, I can't take more of this. That would have been the breaking point for me. So that's why I'm really glad that they didn't do that, because
exactly. But I wouldn't want, like, say, like a Batman movie, just as an example, to like Batman showing up in a store and like hucking a toy of himself at the villain.
Right. I wouldn't want that either. That would not be Batman.
Right. Exactly. So that's like I wouldn't want this to be a launching point for, like, this is the new tone, because I think we've already got that.
Okay. I see what you're saying. What you're saying. Yeah. Well, I think so I'm not saying like let's overcorrect too far the other way. I'm just saying I feel like that before all of the films were before Wonder Woman were dark no matter what, whether the character called for it or not.
That's correct.
What I have been pining for the last 6 years is make the film fit. The tone of the film should fit the character. The tone of the writing should fit the character. I feel like Justice League actually started to do that. It just did it in a very half-ass way, and they fixed a movie when it was already being made, and so it became like a hodgepodge.
That's right. And Suicide Squad the same.
And Suicide Squad exactly. Suicide Squad the same. This is the first time that I feel like they nailed it, because it was not the first time, but compared to the ones you just mentioned, this is different because it nailed it, because it was the appropriate tone for the appropriate character all the way through, like from conception to release. So I'm really happy, and I think that they may have learned their lesson. And like, the trailer for the Joker movie came out, like, and I know that's in a separate universe, but that one looks like it's tonally appropriate for the character.
That's right.
This one was tonally appropriate for the character. I think we've hit the right direction, and I'm now very excited to see more movies like this that are appropriate for the characters.
I agree. I'm just saying, I think even with like the baggage that you say that is associated with those other films before it, I would say that we have now hit 3 films going on, maybe 4 films with Joker that are tonally correct for their characters.
Yes.
Wonder Woman is tonally correct for her character.
Yes.
Aquaman, I think, is tonally correct for this iteration of the character that has already been presented, and
that's
the
right.
baggage
that
you're coming with, and then of course Shazam is tonally correct, and Joker in its own pocket universe is tonally correct for the character, and that's really all. Films really, tone is so important to everything, to writing, into films, into music, and it's important in all aspects of entertainment. The tone should match the character, and some characters are more adaptable than others.
That's right. Right. Yeah.
And others are not, and so it's important to make sure that we stick with that. I mean, Marvel always talks about it's the same tone for every movie. That's not necessarily true.
No,
those films have Guardians of the Galaxy is not Winter Soldier. It's just not.
Of course, yeah, right.
Those are two completely different tones, but they still exist within the same fabric of the universe. And I think that just telling good stories, DC's new direction on paper, is to say we're just telling good stories with good characters, and then we're not really worried about connecting them in a way that a cohesive narrative that has to, each movie lines up to the next narrative. It's more about, okay, they're all together. And Shazam's a really good example of, hey, look, it's Superman. That's it. That's all.
Right. Yeah.
That's it. You don't need anything else besides that.
Kinda. Yeah. I do wish we had seen his face. That would have been, I understand that he wasn't available, but it would have been cool. It would have been cool.
So they filmed, they filmed in a real school, and they were filming during a vacation. And so they had a very limited window of time to shoot all those scenes. And so he was not available for that day that they had to film that cameo. And he was supposed to sit down and have a couple lines with them. It was all written out, and he wasn't available.
That's too bad.
So I know. So, but he also has a history of not being able to do things when he's working for other studios. So it's not entirely surprising.
Starting to wonder if it's a him problem.
Maybe it could be. It could be
he's just not that flexible. Maybe he's one of those people who's very hey, this is my day off. I don't get many of those, so I'm not going to go do another project on my day off. Sorry, that's just
Or it wasn't
5 days off. I'm on
right,
board,
or it wasn't actually his day off, which is also a possibility.
Right. I'm using that as an example, but you know what I mean. Maybe.
Sure. Yeah, some people are more committed to this is the film that I said I was going to work. I did my work for. I'm working for them right now, and this is he kind of boxes it. However, Henry,
and that's why I won't shave the mustache.
Yeah, well, that was.
I know that was different.
That was paramount. Let's not talk about that. But anyway, so he was supposed to sit down and have a couple lines and all of the stuff, and he wasn't available. So it's Zachary Levi's stunt double in the Superman suit, and the director of Shazam was freaking out. He was like, "Oh my god, this isn't going to work. This wraps up the movie. It's mentioned that he's got to it has to finish this way, that he comes in and has lunch, but we can't go back and shoot because they're already in school. So we have to use this." And so when he saw it in edit, he was like, "Oh, this is way better. This is way better."
He thought it was better than what he planned.
He thought it was better than what he planned because he's it's a nice quick beat, and then it's in and out. And I like it because the symbol is more important than the actor who portrays him. And so Superman's symbol showing up means everything. We're not oh, is it Superman? Is it just a guy in a suit? No, it's obviously Superman. Everyone shut up. You know what I mean? So not that anybody's saying that, but I don't need to see his face.
I still would have rather seen the face.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this was bad and they shouldn't have done it. I will not say that. But I will say it would have been nice if we could have seen his face. But it wasn't possible. So this was a good way of a good solution to that problem, since they couldn't do what they meant to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well,
but it was a great movie. It was a great movie. I was so happy with it. I was nervous about it, a year ago, and even recently, a couple months ago. And then once the trailers started coming out, I was like, this looks like they're doing the right thing. Same with Aquaman. I was nervous about it when it was announced. Gradually, as it got closer, I got more and more into it. And in both cases, I was really, really happy. Wonder Woman too. Really, really happy with the end product. So.
Right.
I'm feeling good, man. I think they're on a streak here, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah,
Joker looks great too.
It does. Unpopular opinion by some, but
Yeah.
That's also a divide, but we could talk about that at another time. I will say, like I said, the film doesn't beat you over the head with some stuff. Like Billy gets lost at the same fair where he beats the villain, right, where he beats Ivana. So this idea of he lost his mom, he lost his family at the fair when he was young, and he finds his family again, like his new family at the same fair. There's it's stuff like that like the movie it's not going to tell you, but it's there for you, and that's what makes a good movie. That's what makes it.
Agreed.
Because there's thought into where they're going and why they're doing what they're doing, and I really love that. Plus, Mr. Mind was in it, which is a great stupid character.
I know.
A sentient evil caterpillar. You can't get more weird.
I know.
It's hard to get more weird than that, and they really just went for it. Just like Aquaman went, dinosaurs in the middle of the earth. They're there. Just FYI, when Shazam happens, there are still dinosaurs at the Earth's core in this universe. Just put in it's just there, and now there's a sentient talking caterpillar, and I love it. I love it.
That was so cool. That's not the kind of thing you would have 5 years ago. You wouldn't have expected to see that in this universe, and yet there it is, and I'm so stoked about it.
Exactly. 5 years ago, we're explaining everything. You just we need to explain everything, and now the new direction is because they are shut up.
Yeah.
Why are the Amazons immortal? Because they are shut up. Why why is there a sentient talking caterpillar? Because there is. Shut up. Why in this movie about mermans and merwomen and all this stuff are there dinosaurs in the middle of the earth? Because there are. Shut up.
Right. It's a comic book movie. That's why.
Yeah. But people accept they don't need to. We're moving into a phase where we don't need to explain everything, and I'm really happy about that. Yeah.
You know what? This thought came to me while I was watching the film. It's not just a superhero movie; it's a comic book movie.
Mm-hmm. That's very good. There's a great distinction, Frank.
There is. I think there is because there's more to it than just it being about heroes. It's a whole universe, and part of that universe is sometimes the physics don't make sense. When he saves the bus, right, and he puts the bus down, oh
no, they're all dead.
They would all be dead. The fact that they were all pressed up against the windshield, and then he puts it down, and they just walk out of the bus in an orderly queue, that wouldn't happen. But that would happen in a comic book, so it's fine. When we're talking about comic book logic, comic book physics, and all that kind of stuff. I feel like it all works. It all works, and that made it that much more fun. Another thing, I thought it was very smart that this movie is set in December around the holidays because that means that this movie will have a great life in TV during December, during 25 Days of Christmas type marathons and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. This will now be in that it's not really a Christmas movie, but neither is Die Hard. Here you go. So I think this will have the Santa stuff, like Santa cursing up a storm at the end of the movie. I feel like FX will play this on heavy rotation throughout December.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I had forgotten that the New 52 relaunch of Shazam with Jeff Johns also took place at Christmas.
Oh, so I didn't remember that.
They really leaned into that
that's
reboot
cool.
of the character, which I really like. Did you like the costume in motion on screen, all that stuff? Was it work for you?
I mean, it was right off the page, and it looked good. And because again, it was he was way more muscular than anybody would ever be. But it just worked because they went for it. They just, like you said before, shut up. It is. It just is. It's a comic book movie, and this is what we're doing. And this is just he's going to be this big and muscular, and his hair is going to be gelled back and perfect, and it's just just deal with it. This is just going to be the situation.
That's right,
and I loved that.
Yeah, I did too. What did you think of the when he gives them all their powers? I loved when they gripped the staff and they were like, Billy.
That was super fun.
Say no, not my name. The name I say to turn into this guy. That was good. What did you think of all of them? Did you like it? Did you not like it?
It's the kind of thing I wouldn't have expected in the first movie. It's the kind of thing I would have expected in the sequel. And I thought it was fun that they made it part of this story, and it didn't feel forced, and it didn't feel like it wasn't earned. It kind of worked for me.
It worked. I mean, they're the 7 seats. It sets it up for them right at the beginning, and I really like that. I think they all looked great on screen. They acted like their child counterpart, which was very good. The only one I thought was strange is that Mary is an adult already. Like she's 18 years old. She's going off to college, but when she transforms into a different person.
I thought that was strange too. I would have expected her to stay the same actress. But I guess if she's going to be her idealized version of herself or the best version of herself, then maybe that best version of herself is when she's 30 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
I did notice that too and thought that was like, they didn't need to do that. But okay, that was a choice they made. Fine.
Yeah, it actually took me a second to realize it wasn't her. As it was going, I was like, oh, that's a different person. Oh, that's okay, cool. It's a different person. No, I agree. I didn't feel like something that you would do in a first film, but they went for it, and I like that. And then this movie, by that point, became a very diverse superhero film.
It did.
Like very quickly did they all it became a very diverse group of superheroes, and I really liked that.
Do you think there'll be a Shazam family movie?
Yeah, well, I mean, Shazam, the comic, Captain Marvel, the comic, introduced the superhero family to comics. Like the idea of, Superman and his dog Krypto and Supergirl and all that, and Batman and, Batman with Alfred, not Alfred, but Ace the Bat Hound and Batwoman and Batgirl. And that's all because of Shazam. Like it was the first comic to have the super family. And so, somebody asked me today, is it permanent that they all have his power? And I said, I think so, but they're not as strong as him. They only have one aspect of his powers. Right. He's the ultimate. So, which
I think they did a pretty good job of trying to communicate that each of them got one power.
That's right.
But yeah, I think it would be fun to see a Shazam family movie as a sequel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even if they're not in the whole thing. Who's to say? So anyway, Frank, you can find us at beerwithgeeks.com and Gmail and Facebook. You can tweet us at beerwithgeeks and at TimothyPG13 and at Frank Ramblings. And of course, you can rate and review us on iTunes and Google Play and Satchel and Overcast and Spotify and all the places podcasts can be found. You can head over to patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio to donate some money to the show. You get access to early episodes and off-the-chart ramblings, as I like to call them, just Frank talking at nothing, at walls perhaps, posters of Tony Hawk, whatever his fancy is for the day. And that's about it from us. So, Frank, do you have anything else to say?
No, man, I'm really glad we talked about this, and I look forward to more of these.
Me as well. So, until next time, Shazam!